April 4th, 1966. Gulf of Tonkin. 9:17 a.m. Lieutenant Commander James Jim Howard, U.S. Navy, grips the throttle of his F-4B Phantom II as the aircraft cuts through thin cloud at 25,000 feet. The cockpit hums with confidence. Twin engines, advanced radar, missiles that can kill from miles away. Below him, North Vietnam is a patchwork of rivers and green, quiet and deceptively calm. In the ready room earlier that morning, someone joked about the enemy's planes. "Those little Soviet toys," a pilot laughed. "If they even get off the ground, we'll see them coming a mile away." The room chuckled. Someone scribbled a cartoon MiG on the chalkboard with a red X through it. Jim didn't laugh out loud, but he didn't disagree either. The MiG-21 had only recently appeared in the skies over North Vietnam. Intelligence briefings described it as lightweight, short-ranged, primitive. A point defense interceptor at best, not a real threat to the most advanced fighters in the world. Compared to the Phantom, big, fast, radar-gated, missile-armed, it looked almost fragile, too small to matter. "Red Crown, this is Showtime 2-1. Any traffic?" Static, then the calm voice of the radar ship. "Negative Showtime, clear skies." Jim exhales slightly. He's flying escort today, protecting strike aircraft heading toward targets near Hanoi. The mission feels routine, predictable. That's when the warning tone cuts through the cockpit. Not loud, not urgent, just unfamiliar. "Radar contact, 12 o'clock low," his RIO says, leaning forward. "Fast." Jim tilts the nose down slightly. His radar struggles, cluttered by terrain, ground returns bouncing everywhere. "Probably nothing," someone radios. "Could be birds." Then the contact disappears. Gone. The Phantom roars on. Below them, unseen, North Vietnamese ground control intercept officers are already talking. Vectors are being whispered into headsets. Altitude, speed, timing. The MiG-21 was never meant to duel American fighters head-on. It was built to ambush. North of Hanoi, Lieutenant Nguyen Van Cock, People's Air Force of Vietnam, sits in the cramped cockpit of his MiG-21 PF. The aircraft is small, almost claustrophobic. No excess space, no luxury. Just a seat, a stick, and raw performance. His orders are simple. Do not dogfight. Do not chase. Do not linger. Strike once. Then vanish. The MiG climbs fast, astonishingly fast. Its delta wings slice the air cleanly, pushing the jet past Mach 1 in seconds. It doesn't turn well at low speeds. It doesn't carry much fuel. It can't stay long. But it doesn't need to. It only needs one clean shot. Back in the Phantom, Jim finally sees it. A flash. Silver. Too small, too close. "MiG! MiG! Brake right!" someone shouts over the radio. Jim banks hard, pulling G's, the Phantom groaning under the strain. He tries to bring the nose around, tries to lock radar. Nothing. The target is gone again, lost in speed and geometry. Then the missile comes. Not from ahead, from behind. The MiG-21's K-13 AA-2 Atoll. Missile streaks forward. White smoke tearing a line through the sky. It doesn't need radar guidance. It locks onto heat. Twin Phantom engines are perfect targets. "Missile! Missile!" Jim yells. He slams the throttle, pops flares, pulls into a desperate climb. Too late. The explosion doesn't hit the cockpit. It doesn't need to. The blast rips through the tail, shredding control surfaces, turning the Phantom into a wounded animal. Warning lights bloom across the panel. Jim fights the stick, but the aircraft isn't listening anymore. "Eject! Eject!" his RIO shouts. They punch out almost simultaneously. Canopy gone. Wind screaming. Then silence. From above, Nguyen Van Kosk watches the Phantom fall, trailing smoke, spiraling toward jungle. He doesn't follow it down. He turns away. Fuel is already low. Another ambush completed. Within minutes, American radios are alive with confusion. What the hell was that? Where did it come from? I never even saw him. Back on the carrier deck hours later, pilots talk in quieter voices. No jokes now, no cartoons on the board. The MiG-21 is no longer a curiosity, it's a problem. Over the next weeks, the pattern repeats. American aircraft are hit without warning. Pilots report brief visual contact, sometimes just a blur, before missiles strike. The enemy refuses to dogfight, refuses to chase. The MiG-21 appears, fires, disappears, again and again. The Phantom, for all its power, is suddenly exposed. Its missiles fail to track at close range. Its radar struggles against low-flying targets. Its size and speed, once advantages, now make it predictable. Worst of all, many pilots realize something unsettling. They were trained to fight a different war. In briefings, analysts scramble to explain the losses. The MiG is faster than expected. They're using ground control to vector attacks. They're choosing when to engage. A realization begins to form, slow and uncomfortable. The enemy isn't inferior. They're selective. The laughter is gone now, replaced by a single question whispered in ready rooms and cockpits alike. How many more times will they get the jump on us? And far above North Vietnam, the MiG-21 waits, small, fast, patient. It doesn't need to win the sky. It only needs to survive long enough to strike again. May 10th, 1966. Red River Valley, North Vietnam. 11:02 a.m. The sky is crowded today. Strike packages move in layered formations. F-105, Thunder Chiefs loaded heavy with bombs, F-4 Phantoms flying top cover, electronic warfare aircraft humming somewhere on the edge of the fight. Radios chatter constantly, a steady background noise that almost feels comforting. Lieutenant Mark Reynolds, U.S. Air Force, rides in the back seat of a Phantom as a radar intercept officer. His scope flickers with returns, mountains, rivers, ground clutter. It's messy. It always is over North Vietnam. Red Crown says clear, the pilot says. No bandits. Reynolds doesn't like how often he's heard that lately. Below them, North Vietnamese ground control intercept, GCI stations, are fully awake. Radar operators track every American aircraft entering their airspace. They don't need sophisticated airborne radar. They don't need to see everything. They only need timing. The MiG-21 units are held back, engines cold, pilots waiting. Orders are precise and minimal. Launch when told. Climb fast, attack once, disengage immediately. No heroics, no dogfighting. At Phu Quyen Air Base, scramble sirens howl. Lieutenant Nguyen Van Bay runs toward his MiG-21, helmet under his arm. Ground crew already has the engine spinning. He climbs in, straps tight, eyes forward. The jet leaps down the runway. The MiG climbs like a rocket. In under 2 minutes, Bay is at altitude, far faster than any Phantom expects. The delta wings bite cleanly into thin air. The jet feels alive, twitchy, demanding constant attention. Fuel gauge already dropping. He doesn't care. Vector 270 climb. Stand by. The voice in his headset is calm, detached. Bay doesn't question it. He trusts it with his life. Above, the American formation presses forward. Reynolds squints at his scope again. Got something. Low, maybe. The return flickers, then vanishes. Could be ground clutter, the pilot says. Reynolds isn't convinced, but there's no time to argue. The MiG-21 appears suddenly, rising from below the Phantom's nose. For a fraction of a second, it's perfectly framed against the sky. Small. Silver. Wrong. MiG! MiG! 6 o'clock! Someone screams over the radio. Bay fires immediately. 2 K-13 Atoll missiles streak off the rails. He doesn't wait to see if they hit. He banks hard and dives away, pulling G's that slam him into the seat. Behind him, chaos erupts. One missile misses. Flares confuse it. The other finds its target. An F-105 erupts in flame, wings sheared clean off. The pilot never has a chance. The formation breaks instinctively, pilots scattering, radios exploding with overlapping calls. Bandit low. Brake left. Missile in the air. Reynolds tries to lock radar. Nothing. The MiG is already gone. The ambush lasts less than 30 seconds. Then the sky is empty again. Back on the ground, Bay lands with barely any fuel remaining. His jet rolls to a stop as ground crew swarms it. He climbs out without ceremony. Another mission complete. Another aircraft down. American after-action reports pour in. Missile launches detected without visual contact. Engagements too brief to counter. Losses mounting in situations that shouldn't favor the enemy. Pilots are angry, confused, embarrassed. In briefings, instructors start changing their tone. This isn't Korea, one officer says. Stop looking for dogfights. But doctrine is slow to adapt. Training still emphasizes long-range missile combat, radar dominance, speed and altitude. The MiG-21 doesn't play that game. It uses vertical space, not horizontal. It strikes from below, where radar is weakest. It relies on ground controllers, not onboard sensors. And most importantly, it chooses when to fight. By mid-1966, American pilots are no longer laughing. They're tense. Every mission feels like a trap waiting to spring. Reynolds writes in his notebook after one sortie, "You don't fight the MiG, you survive it." The MiG-21 doesn't win air superiority. It doesn't need to. It forces American aircraft to fly defensively, to break formations, to jettison bombs early, to abandon targets. That is victory enough. Pentagon analysts begin to notice something disturbing. Despite overwhelming U.S. air power, North Vietnamese losses remain sustainable. The MiG-21 force is small, but it's never where it shouldn't be, and never where it can be destroyed easily. The enemy, once dismissed as technologically backward, is now dictating the terms of engagement. And the cost is being paid in aircraft and lives. In quiet moments between missions, pilots talk differently now. No bravado, no jokes, only planning and fear. The MiG-21 has proven it can kill. The question now haunting American leadership is deeper and more dangerous. How do you defeat an enemy that refuses to fight unless it's already winning? Somewhere in North Vietnam, MiG-21s sit hidden, engines silent. Waiting, December 2nd, 1966. Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. 6:18 a.m. The desert is cold at dawn. Lieutenant Colonel Frank Ault stands on the edge of the flight line, watching steam rise from coffee cups as pilots gather around a folding table cluttered with maps, film reels, and after-action reports flown in from Vietnam. This isn't a combat zone, but what's being discussed here is born entirely from combat failure. Ault has been given a blunt mission by the U.S., Navy, and Air Force. Figure out why we're losing pilots to inferior aircraft, and fix it. For months, the numbers have refused to lie. American pilots are flying the most advanced jets on Earth, F-4 Phantoms, F-105s, radar, missiles, speed beyond imagination. And still, MiG-21s are killing them, not through superior numbers, not through better technology, but through tactics. Back in Vietnam, the pattern is undeniable. The MiG-21 never fights fair. It strikes once from below or behind, then vanishes into cloud, terrain, or controlled airspace, where American aircraft can't pursue without running into surface-to-air missiles and anti-aircraft fire. The pilots are not reckless. They are disciplined, they are selective, and they are winning just often enough. Alt and his team begin replaying gun camera footage frame by frame. They freeze images, zoom in, slow everything down, again and again. In one clip, a phantom pilot tries to bring his nose around for a missile shot. The MiG flashes past him, too fast, too close. No lock, no shot. The phantom overshoots. In another, an American jet breaks formation to chase a contact. Seconds later, a missile hits from an angle no one expected. The conclusion is uncomfortable. The problem isn't the MiG, it's American training. Pilots have been taught to trust radar, to engage from range, to believe technology will solve geometry. But Vietnam doesn't allow clean fights. Rules of engagement require visual identification. Radar is cluttered by terrain, missiles fail at close range, and dogfighting, once considered obsolete, has returned, uninvited. Alt writes in his report, "We trained our pilots to fight the war we wanted. The enemy forced us to fight the war that existed." The MiG-21 thrives in chaos. It is small, hard to see, fast in the vertical, deadly in short bursts, and flown by pilots who do not chase glory, only advantage. So the Americans begin to change, quietly at first, then decisively. At Miramar Naval Air Station, a radical idea takes shape. What if American pilots trained against aircraft that fly like MiGs? What if they learned to lose in training before losing in combat? The result is something unprecedented, a program built not around hardware, but humility. They call it TOPGUN. In early 1969, hand-picked instructors begin flying A-4 Skyhawks and T-38 Talons, aircraft chosen not for power, but for agility and size, stand-ins for MiG-17s and MiG-21s. The instructors are aggressive, relentless. They fight unfair, they ambush, they disappear, exactly like the enemy. Pilots arriving at TOPGUN are confident. They don't stay that way for long. Instructors rip through formations, force mistakes, exploit blind spots, embarrass students in front of their peers. Every failure is filmed, reviewed, analyzed. There is no ego here, only survival. Back in Vietnam, doctrine begins to shift. Pilots fly tighter formations, communicate more clearly, watch their six, assume they are being hunted even when nothing appears on radar. The MiG-21 still kills, but now not as easily. By late 1967 and into 1968, the kill ratio begins to change. Not dramatically, but noticeably. American pilots are no longer shocked by the MiG's presence. They expect it. And expectation is the first step toward countering an ambush. Lieutenant Mark Reynolds survives another tour. This time, he sees the MiG coming. Not because radar tells him, because instinct does. Training, hard lessons paid for in blood. The MiG-21 has forced the United States to relearn something it thought it had outgrown. That air combat is not about machines alone. It is about people, and preparation, and respect for an enemy who refuses to play by your rules. The laughter is long gone now, replaced by focus and something else, reluctant admiration. But even as tactics evolve, the war itself is changing. The MiG-21 has done its job. It has bought time, it has forced adaptation, and it has proven that a smaller force, properly employed, can reshape an entire air war. The final realization is still coming, and when it arrives, it will have nothing to do with jets at all. January 12th, 1968. Hanoi Air Defense Command, 8:06 p.m. The room is dim, lit by green radar scopes and cigarette embers. North Vietnamese officers stand silently behind their controllers, watching blips move across glass screens. American aircraft inbound, predictable corridors, familiar timing. For years now, they have studied these patterns, memorized them, exploited them. This is no longer improvisation. It is systematized resistance. The MiG-21 was never meant to defeat the United States in the air. It was meant to delay it, bleed it, force it to hesitate, and in that mission, it has succeeded. By early 1968, U.S. aircrews understand something that took far too long to accept. The MiG-21 is not a poor man's fighter. It is a scalpel, lightweight, fast, disposable if necessary, and wielded with discipline. In Vietnam, American pilots no longer fly with casual confidence. Every sortie is flown as if an ambush is imminent, because it usually is. Formation leads constantly scan below. Wingmen watch each other's blind spots. Nobody assumes the sky is empty anymore. Lieutenant Commander Jim Howard, older now, quieter, sits through a briefing before another mission, in no jokes, no bravado, just checklists. The MiG won't stay, the intelligence officer reminds them. If you see it, you have seconds. Don't chase, don't tunnel in. Howard nods. He's learned what chasing costs. The psychological shift is profound. American pilots still dominate in numbers, still fly more sorties, still drop more ordnance than any air force in history. But dominance is no longer certainty, and certainty was the foundation of strategy. Back in Washington, the realization spreads upward. Analysts see it in sortie effectiveness. Commanders feel it in aborted missions. Politicians hear it in testimony that sounds increasingly cautious. The MiG-21 has changed the conversation, not because it wins air superiority, but because it denies comfort. For North Vietnam, this matters more than kill ratios. Every delayed strike protects infrastructure. Every jettisoned bomb saves a bridge. Every aborted mission buys time. Time to repair, time to disperse, time to prepare for what comes next. And what comes next is not decided in the air. In late January 1968, American pilots noticed something strange. Fewer MiG engagements, less activity. The skies feel quiet. Some interpret it as progress. Others, more experienced now, feel unease. The enemy has never gone quiet without reason. The MiG-21 units are being held back, preserved, not because they are losing, but because their role is shifting. At the same time, intelligence reports spike elsewhere. Movement on the ground, logistics flowing south, coordination increasing. The air war, it seems, has accomplished its purpose. North Vietnamese leadership has learned something invaluable. They do not need to defeat American technology. They only need to survive it long enough. The MiG-21 was a lesson written in aluminum and fire. A reminder that war is not a contest of machines alone. It is a contest of learning. And the side that learns faster, even if weaker, can force the stronger to change. For the United States, the realization cuts deeper. Every adaptation costs time. Every correction arrives late. And every late lesson is paid for by pilots who never make it home. Jim Howard flies another mission. He returns. Others don't. The MiG-21 is not always there. But its absence is no longer reassuring. Because now, American pilots understand the truth. If the enemy has chosen not to fight today, it's because tomorrow matters more. And somewhere beyond the clouds, beyond radar range, the war is already shifting away from the sky. March 1973. Naval Air Station Miramar, California. 3:42 p.m. The jets overhead sound different now. Younger pilots line the edge of the tarmac, helmets tucked under their arms, watching instructors debrief a mock dogfight that just ended minutes earlier. Chalk marks cover a board nearby. Angles, turn rates, missed shots, mistakes dissected without mercy. No one laughs. No one underestimates the enemy anymore. By the final years of the Vietnam War, the MiG-21 is no longer a surprise. It is a reference point. Every briefing, every training syllabus, every tactical manual now carries its shadow. The aircraft that was once dismissed as a lightweight nuisance has permanently altered how the United States prepares for air combat. The numbers tell the story. Before the lessons of Vietnam were absorbed, American kill ratios in air combat hovered dangerously low, sometimes barely favorable. After changes in training, doctrine, and mindset, those ratios improved dramatically. Not because the MiG-21 disappeared, but because American pilots finally respected it. Programs like TOPGUN and Red Flag institutionalize failure, forcing pilots to confront weakness before combat does it for them. Dogfighting returns as a core skill. Situational awareness becomes religion. Technology remains important, but it is no longer trusted blindly. The MiG-21 never wins the war. It doesn't need to. Its true victory lies elsewhere. It exposes arrogance, it punishes complacency, and it proves, beyond argument, that superiority assumed is superiority lost. For North Vietnam, the MiG-21 is a tool of survival. It buys time, it disrupts certainty, it forces a superpower to fight cautiously, expensively, and slowly. That is enough. For the United States, the cost is measured not only in aircraft and pilots, but in humility learned the hard way. The war in the air mirrors the war on the ground. In both, the enemy refuses to fight on American terms. In both, patience defeats power. Lieutenant Commander Jim Howard retires years later. He never forgets the first time he saw the MiG, just a flash of silver, too close, too fast. When asked about it decades later, he doesn't talk about technology. He talks about mindset. We thought the war would look the way we designed it. The enemy didn't agree. The MiG-21 flies on long after Vietnam, in dozens of air forces, in conflicts across continents, a reminder etched into aviation history. Simple, fast, unforgiving. American pilots no longer laugh when they see it. They study it. They respect it. And that, more than any missile or maneuver, is the legacy of the MiG-21 in Vietnam. Because the most dangerous enemy is never the one you fear. It is the one you dismiss.